This is Tim Staten with Tim Stating the Obvious. What is this podcast about? It's simple. You are entitled to great leadership everywhere you go, whether it's to church, whether it's to work, whether it's at your house, you are entitled to great leadership. And so in this podcast, we take leadership principles and theories and turn them into everyday, relatable, and usable advice.
And a quick disclaimer, this show, process, or service by trademark manufacturer, otherwise does not necessarily constitute an implied endorsement of anyone that I am employed by or favors them in representation. The views are expressed here in my show are my own expressed and do not necessarily state or reflect those of any employer.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode. In this last episode, we talked about goal setting and ways on how to achieve our goals. In this episode, we're going to talk about the top 5 reasons why people don't achieve their goals. However, before I get into this topic, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been listening to this podcast and sharing it. We are in several countries and all across the United States, and it's because of you. It's because you are sharing this with 1 or 2 people who you think might like the show, and I am truly humbled by you. Last year, my goal was to increase this show's audience by 20%. I thought that was very ambitious because the year before it was only increasing by about 2%. So I thought I would swing for the fences and work hard to be more consistent and try new things and see where that got us. And by more things, I mean to be more intentional about what I was doing and how I was doing it. Just like this year. We got a lot of stuff coming up that's going to be very, very good this year. But that's why I'm saying I am humbled by you, because not only did we meet our goal by 20%, however, we grew the show to 80%. So that's 60% more than my initial goal was for this show. And that's because of you. That's because you shared the show, you subscribed, you liked, you hit all those icons and the bells and the whistles and everything else on whatever platform that you're listening to this on. You did all those things, and that helped spread the show. And that's because of you. That's because of the work that you helped put in sharing the show, because you got some value out of that. And because you got value out of that, I am very humbled by that. Because if at least one person gets value, then I'm happy. But we grew the show 80% more. That's 60% more than I thought was possible. So what I'm saying is that because you helped make this show grow, and I set the goal for 20%. Last year I shared my vision for the show in January with everybody and said, this is what I'm looking at doing. This is the growth. This is where we're looking at moving. And you helped achieve that goal. And so I thought, hey, in January, I'm going to do an episode about why people don't achieve their goals. And it's not necessarily for the reasons why you think that they don't achieve their goals. It's not because they don't try. I say this because if I can make a goal and achieve it, anybody can do it. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not like anything super special. I'm just a guy behind a microphone talking to you. And if I can do it, I know you can do it. So here are 5 potential reasons why people might not achieve their goals. So the first one is lack of clarity. You may not have a clear idea of really what you want to accomplish, and it makes it difficult to set a specific and achievable goal. In other episodes, we've talked about setting SMART goals and setting smarter goals, but none of that matters if you don't have the clarity of really what you're looking at to accomplish. So how could we overcome this obstacle? How can we overcome this pitfall of lack of clarity? Well, in the last episode, we talked about vision, right? Having a clear vision of what you can see in your mind's eye. And if you can't visualize it internally in your head, then you got to put it down on a piece of paper. But you also need to make sure that you're very clear about what it looks like. Sometimes our visions can get a little bit fuzzy, kind of like an out of focus picture. We kind of know what it looks like, but it's not really clear. We need to tighten up that picture and refocus it so we know exactly what it's going to look like. So that way we know when we get to the other end, and we know as we're achieving our goals that we're clear on what we're going to accomplish. So, for example, let's say weight loss. Let's do weight loss because it's January. People have New Year's resolutions, and the number one New Year resolution every single year is weight loss for 90% of the people out there, according to Gallup polls, right? If you're going to have a weight loss goal, we need to be clear about weight loss, right? Just because you lose weight doesn't mean you're losing fat. It doesn't mean you're gaining muscle. It doesn't mean you're not losing muscle. So if you say, well, I want to lose weight, you can say, well, I want to lose, let's say, 4 pounds of fat in 3 months, or I want to gain 5 pounds of muscle in 3 months. Because the body image is going to be different in either case. If you say, I just want to lose 5 pounds, well, you might look in the mirror and go, well, I don't really look any different. I kind of look the same because you lost muscle and fat. So we got to be clear about how we set our goals so that way we don't get discouraged on them later. And this kind of goes into the second reason why people don't accomplish their goals, and that is because of lack of motivation. What is your why? Why do you want to do what you're doing? What is your motivation for that? Without a powerful reason to pursue a goal, it's easy to lose motivation and give up. It's very easy to lose motivation and give up. And, it's sad to say, but, we're in the second week of January. And statistically, most people who set New Year's resolutions or goals by the second week of January, they've already fallen off and not on track to meet their goals, or even worse, they've given up on their goals. Because they didn't know their why. They didn't have their motivation for it. So how do we overcome this one? Well, in my opinion, I would say, go back to why you're doing it. What is your why? Keep visual reminders around you at all times that keeps you motivated going towards what you're doing. When I'm at work, I have pictures of my family in my office because I am at work for my family. I do what I do for my family. Yeah, I do it for myself too, but the majority of the reason of why I'm doing what I'm doing and I continue to work hard at what I'm doing is for my family. That motivates me. When I look over and I see my family and they're right there next to my desk, so they're kind of like there with me, that gives me more motivation to work harder, to try harder. And that reminds me of my why. That's one way that you can overcome your lack of motivation. Surround yourself with the ideas of the why. What helps you motivate yourself? And then, when you get really down and you get frustrated, go back and look at your wins. Go back and look at your small successes along the way and give yourself credit where credit is due. Being completely honest, I was getting frustrated with the show and I didn't think I was getting as much growth as I wanted to get out of it. And I looked at it a holistic picture. I was like, man, this show's come a long way. I've actually done a lot of incremental growth with consistent work. I'm going to look at those smaller wins and eventually I'm going to get to where my end goal is going to be. And that motivated me. I got super excited about oh man, 80% growth is awesome. Hey, my family is here supporting me doing this. I need to keep putting the effort into it so that it's not wasted effort and energy. That's my motivation for it. So you got to find yours and then keep yourself surrounded with it and keep yourself surrounded by the why. The other thing that people don't accomplish their goals is because of procrastination. People may be putting off the work towards their goals, which can make it harder to achieve them in the long run. Everyone's got to put in the work. You got to put in the work. If you don't put in the work, you're not going to get the outcome. How many times have we told ourselves, you know what, I'm just super tired today. I'll do it tomorrow. I really don't feel like going to the gym tonight. I just had a long day at work. I'm going to go tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and you're like, you know what, I'm still really tired from the night before. So I'm not going to go to the gym now because I'm tired from the night before. So I'm just not going to go. I'll go after work. And you keep putting off the work towards the goal because you think you're going to have time to do it later. I will tell you that there is never going to be the perfect time to do anything. If it's important to you, you need to make the time to put in the work. There's no other way around it. How can you overcome procrastinating? You just need to not procrastinate. You need to do it now. If it takes you 5 minutes to do something to work towards one of your goals, take the 5 minutes and do it. If it takes you 20 minutes, schedule it in, do the 20 minutes, and knock it out. Nothing's going to come easy. And anything worthwhile and worth having is not going to come easy. You got to put in the work. You got to be clear about what you're trying to do. Surround yourself with the motivation to keep you going. Don't lose that lack of motivation, and don't put off the work. Now, the fourth thing that leads to people not accomplishing their goals are a fear of failure or a fear of success. And I'm going to add that success in there. We're going to talk about that, right? So if you're afraid to fail, you're not going to keep pushing yourself, and you're not going to put yourself in an uncomfortable position for growth. We grow as people when we are the most uncomfortable. That's when we get the most growth. Not when things are cozy and cushy and things are perfect and everything is working right. We grow as people when we are uncomfortable doing what we need to do. And that's where growth comes from. And so if you're afraid to fail, then you will never reach your goal, because you're going to be like, well, what if I fail? What if I do this? What if I do that? You're putting self-doubt into your thought process, which then could lead into procrastination, which then could eat at your motivation to do something. And then the clarity of your end goal is going to wither away. Likewise, you could be afraid of success. Well, what happens if this becomes so successful and I meet my goal? What do I do then? You might be paralyzed about the what comes next, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Just get to your goal. Don't worry about if it becomes successful. That's a good problem to have. You know, what happens if I overachieve on my goal? That's a good problem to have. But there are people, myself included, that you might be afraid of. Well, what happens if I meet my goal and it goes really good? What do I do next? What happens if I am actually successful at this? What am I going to do next? What's going to happen next? I don't think I'm planning for that. But again, that doesn't matter. What matters is not being afraid to fail or to succeed and putting in that work. Don't procrastinate. Don't let self-doubt creep into your mind and eat away at all the hard work that you're doing. Now, the last thing that prevents people from achieving their goal, in my opinion, is a lack of planning and execution. Even if we have clear set goals, people may not put the effort into a clear plan on how to achieve them, and then actually how to carry out that plan. It's one thing to have the idea, to have the motivation, to want to put in the work, to not be afraid to get after it. But if you don't have a realistic plan in place on how to be consistent, it's about consistency every day or every other day or every week, depending on whatever your goal is being consistent and how to maintain consistency. And what resources do you need in order to achieve the goals that you have set in mind? So if you don't think about all of those things, and I'm not going to get into detail about it because we've talked about those in other episodes about goal setting. And if you haven't checked that out, I would highly recommend you check them out because they're really, really good. Not because I'm, saying that I did it, because I did, but because it's good information on how to properly plan and properly follow up and reassess your goals all throughout the year. So that way you actually achieve it. I think it's really important. And that's why I'm saying, as the last reason why people don't achieve their goals is because they don't have a clear plan, and they don't have a clear plan of carrying that plan out. And it's also worth to say that you can have all of these happening at the same time. All of these issues and all these reasons, they could all be occurring simultaneously. And that would make it even more difficult for people to reach their goals. But I like to say that a problem is another word for opportunity. An opportunity to look at these pitfalls and say, you know what? I'm aware of them now. I know that these things exist, and it could really be detrimental to me accomplishing my goals and to achieve the things that I want to achieve. So now that I know about them, I'm going to plan for them. I'm going to make sure that I don't fall into these pitfalls and these traps. And I'm going to make sure that I overcome it. So if you do that, if you take a look at these 5 areas and you take a look at the proper ways to set goals, there's no reason why you can't achieve your goal. If you want it and you're willing to put in the work and you don't do these 5 things and you do the opposite of them, you're going to achieve your goals and you're going to achieve great things. But as always, thank you for stopping by and listening to this episode, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. Before we go, I'd like to ask a favor of you. If you could please share this episode with 1 or 2 people who you think might like this topic or this show. And if you haven't followed or subscribed on whatever platform you're listening to this, please hit that button and the alert icon so that you know when we post another episode. If you got some value out of this episode, please leave a comment or review so we can help spread this show with people who might be interested in the topic and you don't know them. But by leaving, a comment or a review will help bring that show to light for them. Again, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm Tim Staten, stating the obvious.